Hi. Well, today in my bookmaking class, we did the Coptic stitch. I've done it before, so I've finally have come around to thinking that it's time for me to make a tutorial for all of my friends who aren't in bookmaking classes. A lot of you are very do-it-yourself minded and would really enjoy making your own books. So I have decided to put together a tutorial video, and I'm going to start off with the materials you'll need. Um, you'll need a thick linen thread. This is waxed bookmaker's thread. The wax is to keep it from knotting while you're sewing. Any thick linen thread that you think you can work with without it getting knotted will work fine. I've done it with lots of different things before. Don't use embroidery floss unless you're really careful because it just tends to tear apart. It's very soft. You'll need an X-Acto knife, a pencil, a tapestry needle. Basically, the size of the eye is the most important thing. I don't like it to be super pointy because I inevitably poke myself several times in the sewing process. So there's a lot of dull embroidery and tapestry needles with large eyes. I prefer them longer than this, but this will work. This is an awl, which basically is a fancy bookmaker's name for a pointy stick. Anything, I've used bamboo skewers, something that'll make a small hole. This is actually, I think, some sort of dissecting needle. And you'll need a folder. This is called a folding bone. They make them out of plastic, and they actually do make them out of bone. A kitchen butter knife will work just fine, provided it's dull enough to where it won't tear the paper. This is for folding your paper. And scissors. Pretty much, I'm just going to use this for cutting thread. You could use your X-Acto knife in case you don't have scissors. And a ruler. This is very important. First, you'll need to have cut a block of sheets of paper all to the same size. This is some paper that I trimmed down myself. I usually use bookmaking scraps or paper scraps from the printmaking shop. They have deckled edges like this, and they're also torn paper, so they tend to be uneven. This is paper I just got from the bookstore. You can also use handmade paper, which I'm going to post a video on how to make that too soon. Hold me to it. And after you have your sheets all the same size, the closer they are in size, the more exact they will be when you're folding and punching holes. Okay, so this is how you fold your paper. You take your paper, line up the corners and the edges on all sides as best you can. Use your folder or your knife and crease it. Now, some bookmakers like to fold it the other way and repeat the process. This just makes for a sharper, crisper edge, and also makes it flatter, so once you punch the holes and bind it all together, the book stays closed. You can do that, or you can just do it once. I've had success both ways. For the sake of time, I've already folded all of the sheets of paper that I'm going to be using for this demo. I have 10 signatures here. As you see, when you trim it yourself, it's very even, which is going to be good for punching holes. If you don't have a very even book block, you can still do this. It'll just be, obviously, the book won't be as even. Now, you thread your needle you need all of the thread you're going to use needs to already be on the needle. It just keeps it from you having to add thread later with a knot. It just looks awkward. It won't ruin your book, but it's best to get that out of the way first. I like to add an additional 2 signatures lengths to it just to make sure. So that's my 2 extra. And then you do 1 length using the signatures as a guide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. I like to cut it at an angle so it's sharper, makes it easier to thread. Any of the hints that I give you guys, you don't have to do it if it makes things harder on you. Basically just want to get a book made, so you just pass it through the eye of the needle. You want about 1 inch to 1.5 inches off the end of the needle. So you want about 3 inches here, and then about 1 inch to 1.5 inches from the end of the string. You want to pass the needle through the thread like that. Stab it. You should have something that looks like this. You just pull on the thread here, and then pull this down. Just pull the thread. You're gonna have a lot of wax build up. This is very waxy. I've made several books today, so there's lots of wax left on the needle. You want it to be flat. I'm having little difficulties here, but hopefully you don't have a clogged up needle. So we're getting it. There we go. I like to pull and twist just to keep it close to the rest of the string. Now you're going to add a loop at the end of your string. So here, you're going to add a loop. Almost like you're going to make a knot, except just don't tighten it. Now throw the length of string behind you, whichever, behind you to the right if you're right-handed, behind you to the left if you're left-handed. Okay, you have your needle threaded. You can do this before or after you punch the holes. I like to do it before. I don't know why. I guess I just like to have that momentum. Okay, what you're going to do now is you're going to measure 1/2 inch from the ends of your book block. This is very, very hard to read. This ruler is black with black letters. There. That's 1/2 inch. And this is 1/2 inch. I'm doing this backwards so you guys can see. I usually look at it towards me. Then you measure the full length of your book, and mine is 4 and 4.6 inches. So 2.3 inches. Oh, it's about right here. This is going to be where your holes will be. So I do the entire book block. That's I got used to that because my book blocks tend to be very uneven. And if you do this, then it helps you, keeps you guided when you're punching holes. I'm getting stuff all over my paper because I have a painting class and my fingers are filthy. Okay. Now I go from the outside inwards. Keep your fingers out of the way. I like to hold it like this. And punch a hole where you have the marks. And now you're not going to punch each one individually on its own. You're going to use the first one you punch as a guide. So Now I'm gonna hold this. Gonna open up this one. Get them level. And I'm using the one that's already punched on the inside as a guide. Just however you can maneuver it to where you're not stabbing yourself and you're still making a hole along the spine. You don't want to get the hole on the sides. If you do, just, get a hole in the spine. You may have little extra holes your first few times doing this. Now, this is important. Keep all of the ones you punch oriented the same way. So I'm going to have a method. After I punch, I'm going to fold like this and put it down right here. And I'm going to do that every single time. Because if not, your holes will get all out of whack. Okay. This is a pretty repetitive process, but that's part of what I like about it. It's very zen. And the more you do it, the faster you get at it. I have done many Coptic books, but I've been out of practice for about half a year. Not too out of practice to give a tutorial, but this is a really nice binding for a lot of different things, like journals and picture books, sketchbooks, things like that. It doesn't require any glue, which if you're into bookbinding, glue can be your worst enemy. It's one of those things. My first time doing bookmaking, it was the bane of my existence. It used to get all over the book board, the book covers. I'd have a perfectly binded book, perfectly square, perfect, just wonderful, perfect little book with a big swatch of glue on the cover. Ugh. Book cloth and glue do not look good together. This is a very clean binding. All your supplies, just very clean. I'm a charcoal drawer and a painter, finger painter, so it's kind of interesting that this is one of my favorite book bindings. One thing I like about the Coptic is it opens flat, so you get to do fun things with it. Okay, now all of your books, your book signatures oriented the same way. Now, just for a guide, I'm going to show you what it looks like when you're done. Ignore these little strings that are hanging off, but this is what it should look like when you're finished. There's the braid down the middle, very Coptic. That's how you usually know it's a Coptic stitch, is that braid down the middle. And it's usually 3 or 5 holes. We're going to do 3 holes because our book is very small. Okay, now, since you've already got your thread, again, you need to have a method. I'm going to be flipping like this. I'm going to be starting with this one. Go to the next video to watch the beginning of the sewing. Yeah, so happy bookmaking!